Hello, all you happy people. A while ago, I reviewed The Complex Found Footage, which was, at the time, the best Backrooms game out there, period. Now, the sequel, The Complex Expedition, has arrived, and it is, without a doubt, the greatest Backrooms game there will ever be, period. First, we'll start out with the graphics and atmosphere, because, well, they're pretty much the game's focus. I don't know how the developer did it, but this game looks just like real life. The graphics are incredible, flawless. I don't know, I can't even think of a word. I've said this in the last review video, but there is no video game that compares to this game in looks, on the market currently anyway. Every single asset and texture is seamless, and you'll find yourself just wandering around and thinking to yourself, how did one 19-year-old kid make better graphics than most AAA studios? I mean, the VHS effects probably contribute to the visuals, but it's mostly the texture quality on the models as well as the quality of the models themselves. I don't know how he did it, again, but a single chair in this game looks like it has more polygons than the entirety of Garten of Banban 3. This game also does the VHS effects very faithfully. Most developers who use these effects just put noise on the screen and a battery icon and call it a day. But you can tell Expedition's developer actually knows what a VHS recording looks like. Just look at the subtle curves at the corners of the screen, like the screen of, what are they called? Like those old TVs from the 80s. You know, the ones where you watch VHS tapes on. Anyway, speaking of VHS, this game got rid of the HUD that most VHS-inspired Backrooms games have. You know what I'm talking about. Where it has like the half squares at the corners and a battery icon on top? Yeah, gone. It's a small thing, but it really helps with immersion. Speaking of immersion, next we have the sound design, which is I don't know how to even like explain it for more than a few sentences. It's really, really good. It's one of those things where you have to like be in the game to know what I'm talking about. The ambience is very eerie, which even though you are alone, you never truly feel like it. That's how great the ambience is. To sum it up, this game feels like one big liminal space. Lots of Backrooms games don't accomplish that very well, but it feels creepy yet comforting, oddly, at the same time. Yeah. Next, we'll talk about gameplay. This game is a walking simulator. The only buttons you need are WASD, F, and space. There's no fighting, no running away from monsters, just you, alone with your thoughts and fears, walking through oddly familiar places. Listen, if you're turned off by the description of the gameplay, please, at least check out the Steam page for this game. I promise you, the graphics are all worth it. It feels like you're playing through one of Kane Pixel's videos. Speaking of Kane Pixels, next on our list of things to cover is the story. Now, when the announcement was made that Expedition would have a story mode, I was more than a little weirded out. I mean, please, have you guys seen what convoluted lore did to the Backrooms? Listen, I'm not against people having their own visions for things, but come on, guys. Smilers, skin stealers, partygoers. The names alone are so unimaginative and dull that I have no doubt that some 12-year-old submitted them to the SCP website, then posted them onto the Backrooms wiki once the SCP Foundation removed them because they were so low quality. They also just don't fit with the Backrooms thematically. I mean, think of it. Liminal spaces. Long, lonely hallways that feel oddly familiar. Oh, and then if you go in the danger zone, you get eaten by one of these things. However, I put my suspicions aside and trusted the developer. After all, his previous game was of ridiculously high quality, especially for a solo project, and he seemed to know what he was doing with the Backrooms and all. So, about a year later, and, well, even though it's called a story mode, there isn't really much of a story. I mean, me personally, that's a good thing. I don't like to be put into other people's shoes during Backrooms games. I like to make the experience my own. So anyway, we're getting off topic. The story is centered around you, the protagonist, who is an employee of a company called Magwave. a company which explores the backrooms, and you get separated from your team and you have to get back to them. That's it. There's probably only about 2 minutes of dialogue throughout the entire game, and again, I like it that way. I appreciate how the story was just out of the way enough for it to not really distract you from the exploring. I like that. I also love the implications that this game has surrounding the very nature of the backrooms. Again, it's not really in your face, and you have to actually use your 2 remaining brain cells to even notice the subplot, but still, it's pretty interesting when you research it. A lot more interesting than... Anyways, the implication of the game makes it seem like the Backrooms is actively trying to replicate our world. Just by looking around, you can see pieces of modern life: doors, tables, fridges, fans, etc., etc. However, it doesn't quite know how everything connects exactly. This is evidenced by weird placement of fans, distorted music coming from unknown sources, and more. Think of the Backrooms in this version of the lore like a parrot. It actively knows what a certain thing is and can perfectly replicate it. However, a parrot doesn't really know what it's saying, it just mimics what it hears. The 50 parrots at the animal shelter don't know that the countless slurs that I taught them offend people, you know? There's also the interesting implication that the Backrooms literally takes chunks out of our world to absorb into itself so that it has a base of reference from which to copy. A good example of this is the mall area. All of the architecture in the Backrooms are all whimsical and nonsensical. There are no windows anywhere, and if there are, they just look out into a wall. But then, in the very middle of this weird, distorted labyrinth, you can find an entire mall area that is completely untouched by the Backrooms. The tables are all a perfect, reasonable height. The letters on various signs are all coherent and readable. Heck, even the music being played genuinely slaps and doesn't sound like an F&F song for once. Same goes for the subways, parts of the hotel area, and the fully functioning merry-go-round, and the Magwave facility at the very end of the game. Spoilers, by the way. This also gives us a good look at the possible origins for the singular monster in the game. It's entirely possible that this monster is actually the Backrooms' attempt at creating life. You know, speaking of monster, I want to gush on that a little bit. I love the design and how different of an approach it takes compared to the fandom. I mean, I still don't know why the dev put one of the guys from Blank Room Soup in the Backrooms to quietly molest me, but hey, I still like the design. It's so simple but so creepy and unnerving with its blank, soulless eyes and long limbs. I love how it's never apparent if it's actually trying to hurt you or not. This is what the creature inhabiting the Backrooms was supposed to be. Not some skin-stealing, soul-eating eldritch horror thing with a party hat. No, this creature is a silent, natural observer, always watching but never touching. It does nothing to try to physically hurt you in any way, shape, or form. It just unnerves you with its sheer size and presence, its unknown origins, and its unknown motives. It's almost worse that it doesn't end your suffering right here and now. It just lets you live with the miserable paranoia of being watched while slowly dying of thirst, hunger, and insanity. And that, my excellent viewer, is what made the Backrooms scary in the first place. Now, this game is technically in early access, so not everything I can say negatively about this game will stay relevant for long, but, I mean, even then, this game is so great that I don't really have any complaints, just minor nitpicks and things I would like changed. So, there were a lot of interesting locations in Expedition's predecessor that I was hoping to see expanded on in the news game. My 2 favorites were the Crimson Neighborhood and the 3 shacks in the middle of nowhere. I don't know why they're my favorite. I guess it's just because they're so different from everywhere else, and they were also outdoors. Unfortunately, both Crimson Neighborhood nor the shacks are anywhere to be seen. But that, last but not least, is also the Entity. Now, again, I think the Entity was mostly done right. It's mysterious, it builds tension, and it has an unsettling appearance, so on and so forth. However, my actual gripes with the Entity is how it appears in encounters. Every time the Entity appears, it triggers a cutscene. You'll see a camera shake and you'll think to yourself, oh, the Blank Room Soup guy is here. This drastically reduces the creep factor of the Entity and removes all tension from his appearance. It takes you out of the game and reminds you that you're playing one. Rather than the encounters feeling natural, like the Entity's been following you around all this time and you just now spotted it, the encounters all feel fake and artificial. This was handled way better with the developer's previous game. The Entities never triggered cutscenes. You just round a corner and way off in the distance you'd just see a faint black shape turn a corner. That felt so much more natural. It creates paranoia. You feel like anytime you turn around, you might see something watching you just out of sight. But here, that's all taken away. You know that you're not going to see the entity because your camera hasn't moved on its own yet. Sarl, if you're watching this, please do something about this in the final release. If you want to, of course. By just having the entity appear, not doing anything, just standing there and watching you, would help make the game just feel so much more eerie. Maybe program the entity so it has a random chance of appearing in certain places to keep people on their second playthroughs on their toes. I mean, everything else with this game is great. Maybe add some more decoration to some places, but yeah, other than that, this game is awesome. I give it a 9.5 out of 10. Anyway, that's the end of the video. Subscribe if you like me, like and comment if you feel like it, and Godspeed.